do and only took 8 seconds a day. She shared how she traveled around the world and cherished those precious memories for a lifetime.
Pat Kite, a board member. And just as a reminder, if you would, if you haven't already silenced your phones, please do that. And just a reminder, we are streaming this meeting and it's being recorded also. You've heard the adage, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. So I'm from the board and I'm here to spend your money. We have talked about this project out here in the patio for 5 or 6 years, been going on and on. If you've been out there, you know the pavilion near falling down, it has to be replaced. So we've been talking about that and what we can do to make it better. This community is getting bigger and more active, and our clubs have grown in size. Social committee, the wine club, their alone wine club has like 300 people. So they don't all fit in here. Be nice to be out there. So that's what we're here to talk about today. And we've got our folks from Van Dyke Landscaping who've been worked for us before. And they'll be doing their presentation shortly. But I just want to, number one, thank the board for letting me lead this project. But what I wanted to do, my vision was that this ought to be a community project and not board-driven. So I put together a number of people from the community to work on this project with me. They're up here. You can blame them later. And they're each going to speak shortly. But I just thought it was important that we bring the community in here, that this be a community project and not just something that I or the board is driving. We wanted it to suit what they do, their groups, their committees, their meetings, their parties. It's about the community. It's not about me, not about the board. It's about making this community better. And I think we're on our way to doing that. Having said that, there's a cost. We know that. It's going to be expensive. We don't know how expensive yet, but it'll be more than $500,000 and probably up towards $1 million. We don't know. What we do know is as we go through the process and we go out to bid, that we're probably going to have to phase this in over a couple of years. Much of it, most of it's going to come out of our reserve funds, which we've saved for. But again, we're going to have to phase this in. It's just too big to bite off, I think. But we'll know more later. I don't need it. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you Tony Harris, Sharon Carlson, Judy Gerber, Bob Miller. These are people. Don't clap yet. These are guys that have spent hours going through drawings, meeting with Van Dyke, driving over to the coast, working on this thing. And I'd like them just to give their thoughts on where we are, how we got here, what you think of the project, and then we'll go from there. Tony?
Hi, I'm Tony Harris. I've lived on Via Amapola for about 9 years. I was super excited when Pat invited me, so thank you. Quick question, Bruce, you're out there somewhere. Do I only have 3 minutes? Because if I have more, I've got a few other subjects I want to kind of go over. If you've been anywhere near that patio that's out there now, you're aware that the only colony residents that really enjoy it are the termites. It's needed love for a long time. And I think we've put something good together. If you've already looked at the renderings, we spent some time with VDLA. We spent a lot of time with VDLA, and they seem to have our pulse pretty well. Apparently, they've done some work for us before, some landscaping consulting and so on. So they're familiar with how we think and what we're looking for out of life. So. You'll see from the plans and proposals that the solution has to hit a lot of issues, not the least of which is to get us looking forward, to get us a design that will carry us for the next, I don't know how many years, this thing's been there 30 years, so does this one need to stand for that long too? But it definitely needs the design and the appearance and the use needs to carry us forward a decade to 2 decades. Growth, our events are getting bigger. The wine club, Bob's proud to tell you, is a solid 200 people. And we have a lot of events now, a lot of concerts that run out to those numbers. We've got a lot of residents that are very active and showing up at a lot of these events. So we had to be able to accommodate that growth. The new area is larger, more spacious. It'll house those bigger events. As an entertainment venue, it needs to be top-notch. Better band visibility, better dance access, better food access. That's a high priority for us. The new design needs to incorporate the pool area into the venue. We went to a concert last summer, and we chose one of the patios up on the pool area, which was great. The music was just about right. It wasn't too loud. But I kind of felt like we sneaked into the drive-in. We sort of felt we weren't part of the event, but we kind of were. And, oh, yeah, we need some food and that kind of thing. So I think getting it incorporated into the pool area is going to be a good thing for us. The double gates are going to help that, and some other things that Jim says he can make happen. So focal point, we've got a nice money shot with this fireplace right out front. That's good for buyers, people coming into the colony, seeing our place for the first time, walking through that atrium, and then seeing that fireplace out front, I think really helps, gives us a money shot. This was definitely a collaborative effort, I think, between the HOA board, between Pat and the others. Associa, Cara, was involved, and she's super important to us because she's the one that puts all these shows together for us. So, and then the residents, the volunteers, us, that stuck our fingers in wherever we could and made our comments. So I think the proposal does a good job of covering the bases. I think there's no way it's going to please everyone all the time, so we just need to remember that. But I think most of the time is a worthy target, and I think we've hit it. So thanks.
Okay. Sharon?
Hi, I'm Sharon Carlson, and I happen to chair the social committee. So this project was pretty important to me, and I really appreciate, Pat, that you reached out and asked me to come on to get some feedback for the social committee, because as you know, we're the planners of the fun. One of the things I like the most about this project is it's going to allow us to have more people at the events. It's basically enlarging the space. The dance area is really nice, and we will be able to have some great outdoor events. We have better access from the patio covered tables to the pool, which has always been a little bit of a difficult thing when you're planning outdoor events. It always previously feels like it's three pieces: the area right outside the doors, the area under the current patio cover, and then when we use the pool area, it feels like it's three different events when it's really one event. This new patio will allow it to feel like it's one event and we're all together. The fireplace is gorgeous. If we have a cool fall night and we want to be outside, it's great to have that ambiance. I'm really excited about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Judy?
Yes, I'm Judy Gerber. I'm chair for the Rec and Fitness group. So I was brought in to help be part of this as well. I was here about 4 years ago when we decided not to add, if you all were here, we had a closed-in area we were going to add to the outside where the pavilion is right now. It was going to be closed in, and it just didn't fly. So when we sat down, we took a look at what do we really want to do with this, and so we decided, yes, we want a pavilion. We're looking at what can we add to it, and that may not happen when we first build it. It may take a few years to make sure we have all the reserves we need. But it was placed so that the servers for any dinners or barbecues, they can carry it right out the kitchen, because if you look carefully, there's a little kitchen area there. Real easy access into our kitchen, which will work fabulous for the people who are working those events. We set it up so that our architect knew exactly that we wanted lines to serve in that would flow. Because if you've ever come to an event here, if you're sitting out by the pool, or you're sitting over by the atrium, or you're sitting under the pavilion, it is like a puzzle trying to get to the food. So we tried to look at all of that to make sure that it would flow easily and that we're not running into each other. We decided to expand, all of us as a group looked and said, we need to expand this to make it sure it does flow carefully. And then expanding that added the fireplace. It also added that kitchen area. It added a larger pavilion so that everybody can be a part of everything. But it also opened up that gate area so that even if you're at the pool, you have easy access into the pavilion. It's a wonderful thought-out piece. And we didn't always agree, so in our meetings, there were times, we all had to speak our minds, and then we had to come down to, okay, what's going to be best for the colony people? What's going to be best for 15, 20 years down the road and more? And so this is kind of the plan we came up with. I think they did a fabulous job, so thank you.
Thanks, Judy. And we're fortunate to have Bob with us for a number of reasons. Number one, he's feeling better. That's a good thing. But he's represents the wine club, which is huge. But he's also on the finance committee, and so he knows our dollars and cents reserves versus capital. And so, Bob, if you would.
All right. Like you said, I was selected because of I'm vice president of wine club, and we're going to have probably 300 members by the time the middle of the year. So we have between 150 and 190 people in this auditorium once a month. And we're always strapped for space, and we're trying to see where can we go. We do have two functions outside, and my point was I wanted to get a bigger area so we could have more functions outside, so we don't feel so enclosed and so cramped in that. So what I looked at is just expanding the present pavilion, making the flow better. We also have, when we're outside, we also have meals we serve. And as Judy said and everybody else said, the flow is very important to us. And so I was looking at, can we get an easy flow in and out? And I believe they've done that with this. Also expanded area, more just breathing room, I guess, out there. And that's what I was out there for, to get more room. So the wine club and even social committee, you all have a lot. Social committee always has a lot going on, so that we can go out there and enjoy it, not just, because nobody enjoys it now. It's just out there, and I never want to sit out there. I want to sit in the big area in that, but I think if we make it nice in that, and try and make it all, with a couple months we can all use it, but if we can expand it, maybe put some heaters up in that, you could be in the spring or the fall when it's not real cold out, but just, the heat there to make it warm. So anyway, that was my point of trying to get it big enough for the wine club. I know it's very limited, but that's, we got 300 people and we don't want to service as many as we can up there. All right, as for, I'm on the finance committee. Thank you, Pat, for telling them that. I'll be up here next week too, talking about the budget. Okay, as Tony said, reserves and capital. Now, many of you may know this, but just as a layman, the difference is reserves is for replacement repair. When we did the roads, we were repairing the roads. We were resurfacing them. That was a reserve expense. When we did a lot of the work in here, we were redoing the auditorium. That was reserve expense. So reserve is for things that we already have, that we're improving on, that we're replacing. That money is set aside monthly, and part of your dues, there is an amount that goes to reserves. Because we're constantly pulling money out of there, we have to replenish it. So part of your dues goes into reserves. Now, capital is the operating side of the budget. That's what I, as a finance committee, we're looking at the capital. We're looking at the operating budget. That is what we run the colony on day to day. All your expenses, all your general ledger accounts, all that is in the operating side of the budget. There are some general ledger account for the reserves, but that, again, the real bulk of what we're dealing with here in the finance committee and with you all is the operating expense. Our budget's around, I think it was $6.4 million last year. Now we're looking at a budget this year. Now, that, if you do anything new, like I said, it'd be nice if we could have heaters out there. But we don't have them out there now. Someday we may put them out there. That's a capital expense. We're not replacing anything, we're adding something new. So that goes out there. You see the fireplace that's been mentioned here in the corner there. We don't have that. So that would be, if we put that in at some phase, again, we're gonna have to phase this in, that would be a capital expense coming out of operating budget. So what we're dealing with day to day, that would come out of that. It's brand new. We don't have it before. We haven't had it before. We use it now. With the cameras that Capcom uses, some are new, some are replacements. The replacement ones, reserves did it. The brand new ones they want will have to come out of capital budget. Now, a lot of that capital that we have to pay comes out of your equity side. Equity is when Chuck presents the budget, you'll see a line for owner's equity. That is sort of your money left over from prior years, this year and that. And it fluctuates. If we have a bad month, lose some money, it comes out of owner's equity to fund it. If it doesn't, it goes, you can see it sort of adds to it. So at the end of the year, that all equals out. But that's where a lot of your capital expenditures come from. Unless we know it's going to happen and we budget it ahead of time, then it'll come out of the regular budget. But a lot of these things we don't know. So we have to pull capital. So that's what it is. The operating capital's out of the operating side for new things, reserve. We have, I think, 3 point something or $4 million in reserves right now. That is for the things that we did, that we're going to do to replacing that. So that's a layman's side of it. I hope you understand it.
I hope you do.
I do, yeah. So anyway.
Okay, and so probably one of the most important people around here.
Sorry.
Okay, work your magic.
Sorry. So I work with this awesome panel, the subcommittee. Sorry. So I work with the subcommittee, all of them at one time or another, and I wanted to come in and kind of bring the perspective of all of them, but also have my ideas what we needed on the back end of the project, on what it takes to produce a party or produce an event. We need space and electricity and things like that needed to put these people's visions in place. So as you could see in the picture, they've done a great job in putting their ideas together and really expanding the area. So we have not only a large stage area for the bands we're gonna bring in, but also a dance floor and a huge covered patio that houses probably 50 more people than it did currently. Also space to have outside uncovered seating and not be crammed into 3 very different sections. Like Tony was saying, it felt like there was 3 different parties going on. So hopefully that, is one thing that we wanted to address, was making our large, like 4th of July's, our wine club events, one cohesive space. Or even if you were seated, you like to sit in the pool area, you have the big gate openings where you're still part of the event and not kind of pushed into the back, sneaking into the party. So in our catering area, again, keeping with the cohesion, it's still in the same area, but have enough room to safely get in and out of the food line in an effective way. So that was my part. I just wanted to share my ideas about how it is currently used and how it could better be utilized.
Good, thanks, Kara. She's one amazing woman. Things that she does. So bottom line is, it's a great thing for the community. It's going to help with our home resale value. It's just a great amenity for a great community. And I can't thank these guys enough up here for the work they've put in on this. Just a great job. The board went through extensive interviews with a number of landscape architects, and they rose to the top the work they've done here before, the presentation they made. And I think it'll be evident, Denise, tomorrow or here tonight, to walk us through this, show us what they've all come up with. You know, the board's going to get credit for this or not. We'll get blamed or take credit, one of the two. But ultimately, they did it. So it's a community project. I'm so proud of what they've done. So Denise, have at it.
Terrific. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to, throughout this presentation, you'll hear me echoing a lot of what was already said, but what I hope that you come away with is an understanding of our approach and what went into the design and why we made some of the decisions we made. So if you can go to the next slide. So just a quick agenda of our overview. I'll be introducing my colleague in a moment here, and then we're going to talk about the actual project scope that we were given and what our goals were, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the existing conditions and considerations that went into the design, and from there we will start looking at our actual conceptual design, and in addition to the layout, we will be showing you some of the amenities and materials that we are proposing for this project, and then we'll talk about kind of the next steps to get this ball rolling a little bit more and get you guys closer to construction. And then after that, there will be a Q&A period. Next slide. So my name's Denise Armijo. I am with Van Dyke Landscape Architects. I am a principal there. I have been with the firm for 22 years. And in fact, have been out at the colony before. I'll talk about that in a couple more slides. I'm here today with my colleague, Mauro Macias, and so he is one of our Photoshop whizzes who has really assisted in coming up with the layout and putting together the renderings that you will see. Next slide.
Hello.
So a little bit about Van Dyke Landscape Architects. We are a small business certified firm. We have been in San Diego and doing work throughout the region for over 50 years. We call ourselves an A to Z firm. We do all types of projects and all stages of projects. And the reason I want to mention this is because it's very important. We not only do HOA work, we do work with community developers, municipalities, agencies, et cetera. And we do work that includes plan checking and consulting with County of Riverside, for instance, County of San Diego, and Eastern Municipal Water District. And we also work with those landscape maintenance districts doing inspections. And so what this means is that what we bring to the table is an expertise from both sides. We're looking at it both as designers and the aesthetics and what looks good, but also we have actually seen in the field. We know how things are constructed. We work with the contractors during construction. We know what sorts of things can be hang-ups in a project, and we know how to avoid them. And we also know what is maintainable and sustainable. And so that all informs our design to give us something that is durable and long-lasting. And that is what I hope you will be seeing in the project as I present it. Services within our office, of course, landscape architecture is our main thing, but that includes thematic master planning, which we have done out here at the colony, urban design, and also we have a focus on water conservation. Next. So qualifications, of course, the landscape architects. We, for water conservation, we are unequaled, I dare say, in the region. We have a number of certified irrigation designers, certified landscape irrigation auditors, as well as recycled water supervisors. And although we don't have a huge plant component to this project, it does mean that we take that into account as far as your overall landscape and how we are affecting that. Next. Our number one qualification for this project, we know you guys. As was mentioned, we have been here before. It was about 10 years ago that we initially came out and did some thematic master planning for you. That's the graphic that you see in the upper right. And that was taking a look at the entire community, seeing what you had going on, kind of where you had deficient landscape or things that we thought would be considerations in future, and help you guys come up with a plan and a roadmap in order to improve the overall landscape and aesthetic of the community. And as you can see from the renderings, that include the turf replacement that happened along Avenida Florida, And we also assisted you with obtaining those grants for the turf replacement and seeing that installed. So we know you guys. Next. So the scope that we were given for this project was to revitalize the existing patio area. You have, as has been mentioned, an aging patio structure that needed to be replaced. And it really is not ideal for events. It's got a lot of posts on the interior. That makes it really difficult when you have events where you want to be able to move tables around or maybe even have a mix of different types of tables. And I should mention as one of my own qualifications that before I studied landscape architecture, I worked in the event and planning community for a number of years. And so I also am looking at this particular project with that in mind, because we want to maximize the use of the area for when you have events. And that includes your pedestrian circulation and use of the barbecues and catering. We also we're tasked with increasing the dance area and making it feel like one space. And also, last but not least, as you will see in some of our graphics, without also adding a second bocce ball court. Next slide. So existing conditions, this is an image of your existing area, and you can see the delineation between the pool and where the fencing runs. You can see the change in the color of the concrete on there and the existing shade structure. This really does make it split up into different areas that don't feel like one cohesive space. And so as we have been coming up with our design, we were wanting to look at ways that we can open it up and make it flow better. We also had to take into consideration the pool regulations, because you do have that fence there for a reason. It is required by code, and there are all of these codes that we certainly don't want to come up with a plan that you aren't going to be able to implement because it's not going to pass for approvals. So again, just another item that we were taking into consideration with the design. Also, of course, the aesthetics. We want to give you something that looks planned, that looks like a space that when you step into it, it's like, this is our event area, that's really attractive to not just you, but also potential homeowners who might come through and look at the space. And that also is not going to look like it's just coming out of nowhere. We want it to look like it blends in with what you have on site. Next. So this is an overall plan view of our design, as you can see, and you can see the bocce ball court down at the bottom part. And actually, if you go to the next slide, I'm going to show you the enlarged area just for the patio area. I'm going to walk you through this a little bit. So this particular slide you can see some light lines that show existing elements. What I'm roughly outlining here is your existing patio cover. And the existing fence and gate come along here. And then they cut over towards your spa. And you currently have, this is all a planting area, which is lovely. And as a landscape architect, I am never one to want to pull out plants if I can help it. However, when you look at the overall space, you can see how it's really bisecting it and leaving this area off as this little sliver that's really kind of isolated on that back side. And that's something that we really wanted to address. And so as you can see with this layout, we are really opening that up. And actually, if you can go to the next slide, this is a clean one. You can see how what we're going to do here is bump that fence all the way out so that it aligns with this line of the spa and comes all the way out to the existing fence line. And we will keep 2 double gates we are going to put in. And that way it will improve your flow during your events. And we also have one of them situated so that it will have direct access to the patio cover so that folks wanting to go to and from the pool area can do that. I should have also mentioned that you do have a circular planter right about here. That's going to come out. That was something we looked at potentially repurposing, but in the end, when we were looking at the flow of the space and wanting people to be able to come out and be able to have dancing spread over, as well as accommodating any sort of performers or musicians, we really felt that, again, that was something that was just kind of in the way. And so that will come out, and it will be replaced with this fireplace here, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So the flow of the space is going to be coming out of the clubhouse, and you come out into this wide open dance area, and over here, right by where you have the existing chimney, it's not going to be delineated. This line does not mean there's going to be a line actually on the ground. It's just the space that we kind of set aside and said, is this sufficient space for performers, for having their audio equipment, their lights, what have you? And so that's the area that we think would work very well for performers and would also be visible from anyone sitting under this pavilion area. So as you come around the corner, you've got the wide open dance area, and then the barbecues, you currently have 2 grills right now. We will keep 2 grills, and they will be in a counter right about here. This counter is about 3 feet wide by about 14 feet long, so it's a good size. And then we're going to have a second counter about 6 feet away from it, and then a third one, which is going to be just up against the annex building. And because of the plumbing in the annex building, we should be able to put in a little sink right here as well. And we are going to push out the existing gate a little ways past the kitchen door there. That's going to really improve your flow for your caterers or anyone going to and from the kitchen. And it's going to allow them to access these counters and really kind of keep out of the main flow of people who are using the dance area or going to and from your pavilion. And then you do have a little bit of extra space behind. I mentioned that this fence is bumping out. This wall also is going to bump out from where your current fence line is. If you can flip back to the previous slide, please, for just a moment. You can see right here, this is your existing fence line runs about here. So we're going to push it back a little bit. And so we will need to be doing some retention there, and that's something that we will work out during design because the exact location may shift a little bit in here, but what we wanted to do again is to just really open that up to give you more space for the pavilion. If you can go to the next slide. So the pavilion itself, I will be showing you some images in just a moment, but this is a 38 wide by 50 foot long pavilion. And it will fit in here. This was all drawn to scale. It will fit 16 60-inch round tables in there. So that's a good amount of seating. And there are no posts in the center of it. So that's going to give you a lot of flexibility for how that space is used. So going on to the next slide. So for the pavilion itself, what we have proposed is a prefabricated steel structure. This is made by a company called Polygon. They are very well known in this area. They do a lot of parks and commercial as well as industrial structures. The thing that's wonderful about it is being steel, it's very strong. That's what gives us the ability to only have posts on the outer sides of it, on the perimeter. Polygon also will work with us to give us the exact size and shape that we need. Because they do all of their engineering in-house, this also gets us around having to come up with, bring an architect on board, do architectural drawings, get all of that permitted through the city. They do their own engineering. It's basically a rubber stamp when it goes through the cities. The city will review their calcs and the engineering and typically don't have any comments on it. Because they are doing their own engineering also, we will work with them to let them know what we want as far as any sorts of amenities or add-ons, and they will make sure that their posts and all of the structural eaves on the inside can accommodate that. So it's been mentioned already that some of this work may be phased, but because we are working with Polygon on it ahead of time, you will know that you will be able to add it on later without having to make any sorts of changes to that structure. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, hop back for one moment. So I just want to mention the color. This is, the structure that you're seeing here is not the exact same size that we have, but it's close to it. And this color that you see on it is called copper penny. It's a very close match to your existing roof tiles, which is what you see in the upper right-hand corner. Next slide. So the add-ons and amenities that we're talking about would allow you to use this space year-round. So we are looking at having overhead fans, which also have built-in LED lights. That's what you see in the upper right-hand corner. And those will likely be supplemented with some of the cylinder lights that you see on the lower right corner. Those are adjustable lights. And of course, those are going to be LEDs, so they're very energy efficient. And because they are adjustable, we can make them a softer glow. You can make them brighter if you have some sort of crafts going on or something where you need to have a little bit more light under there. It's going to give you a lot of flexibility. Of course, heaters for when it's chilly outside, and then also a misting system. And these are all going to be commercial grade, so your misting system is going to use stainless steel piping that's going to last, and it will have a pump and be made specifically to cool that area. And we will work again with the manufacturer on that to have it designed. The lower left two images that you see are drop shades. And these are drop shades that also have a built-in function to respond to when there are high winds. So they are really made for exactly this sort of use. They can be lowered partway. We talked with the manufacturer, and it's Bob's Canvas, so I believe they've done a lot of work out here, so they're familiar with you guys as well. And we've talked about implementing shades all around the structure. We may not need them around the entire thing, because on your north side, we may be able to save a little bit of money there. But we are working with them to get that designed. And probably it will be 2 drop shades per side, and that's going to give a little bit of flexibility if you want to block some sun, but you need to allow people to be able to walk back and forth. There's also been an idea raised of potentially talking to them about making one of the sides using shades that could have images projected onto it, for instance, if you wanted to have a movie night. So that's something else that we can explore as we go further down the road in design. Next slide. So for the walls and fences that we are proposing, we would be matching what you have existing. So the area that I'm talking about pushing out that would need to retain on the back side of that pavilion would be just as you see it here. It's partial retaining wall with the tubular steel fence on top. Any of the fencing and gates that would occur between the pool and the pavilion would be the tubular steel fence to match the top portion of what you see in the image here. And the walls for the retaining would be stuccoed to match what's existing, so it's going to blend into what you have. For ornamental planter pots throughout the space, we are proposing to use precast concrete planter pots. They are nice and heavy, which means that you don't have to worry about them tipping over. We will, of course, work with you guys for the exact placement of those to make sure that it's appropriate. And we will choose a color that is complementary. They didn't have, I couldn't get some imagery with some of the colors that we were looking at, so unfortunately the ones you're looking at are white. They probably will not be white. It will probably end up being a darker color or perhaps an earth tone. But again, that's a little bit further down the road. Next slide. The barbecue counters, the 3 counters that I pointed out, the one closest to the annex and then the other 2, the countertops will be either a manufactured quartzite product or polished concrete. We're still working out costs on that to see what is most economical. Of course, whatever material it is going to be UV resistant. It would be typical for any sort of countertops such as these to require some sort of layer of stain or treatment in order to help it weather well, and that normally would require redoing it maybe once a year, but we want to try to minimize the maintenance for you guys on this. For the stone veneer sides, this is the product that we're looking at. It's got a mix of colors in it that go very well with all of your earth tones that you have currently, as well as the clay tiles and the copper penny color of the pavilion. Next slide. So this fireplace that you're seeing here is not the exact same veneer as you see on the left, but that's what we are proposing to use on it. But this is an image of a very similar fireplace. And the way that these work is the box that you see in the upper right is it's a prefabricated ventless firebox. And so even though it looks like a typical fireplace, it doesn't have to vent up. And the reason we did this, there's a couple reasons. One is that when you have a box that's only open on the front side, all of the heat's going to come out front instead of going up through the chimney. Secondly, and most importantly, you don't have to worry about a chimney that needs to be maintained. So the box is brought in, and then it will be built up around it using CMU blocks and then the stone veneer. Next. There's going to be a seat wall at the fireplace, and that's going to use that same stone veneer to be matching, and a precast concrete cap on top that's suitable for sitting. Next. Inside the barbecue counters, we are proposing two 38-inch grills that would be replacing the ones that you currently have, as well as the sink that you see up top. These are stainless steel items, and again, are appropriate for exterior use and quite durable. Next. For lighting in the area, you currently have 3 of the existing post lights that you see on the right within that area. Those will need to be relocated. We have a mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineer who's on board, and they're going to work with us on looking at the actual luminaires and figuring out where those are best suited to give you your overall lighting for the space. In addition to that, we are looking to add a couple of discrete ambient downlights for the dance area. One will likely be positioned on one of the corners of the pavilion, and the other likely on the corner of the existing clubhouse here over towards the chimney. And those will be lights that will be shielded so that you're not looking directly at a light shining into your eyes, but they will be adjustable and will be able to give a soft wash and glow over the area for during events. And of course, they will be able to be turned on and off. And that's something I should have mentioned also about the add-ons for underneath the pavilion. Those will all be controlled in a way that you will have flexibility on how many heaters are on at once, how long they run for, et cetera. We're making sure that you guys have everything to keep it comfortable. And as we all know, sometimes, if you have a simple on-off heater or on-off light, that doesn't always work. These days with LED lights, we have a lot of options. And so any of the lights that we are adding on here will give you that flexibility. The kind of snaky looking shape that you see on the screen there, as well as the middle picture, are showing what's called a tape light or a rope light. And we are proposing to use these underneath the edges of the countertops at the barbecue and also underneath the edge of the seat wall at the fireplace. And so these, again, are adding a little bit of ambient lighting and also helping to light up those features, because this is an important project for you all, and the aesthetic of it really, as I said, should also be something that this is a focal area. This is something that pops. This is really the center of your community and for your events. And so this sort of lighting will be used to help highlight that. Next. So this is a rendering of the pavilion as we are proposing it. And on this particular one, we are not showing the fencing and gates, and you'll see in a moment why that is. But you can kind of see the relation to the back wall, which will be pushed out just slightly. And then over in the background on the left, you see your annex, and then the 3 counters with the 2 barbecue grills on the left. Also, I should mention that on the concrete, we are proposing to go with integral colored concrete, which is not very much more expensive than your plain gray. When you are doing 2 projects side by side with concrete, even if you're going with your plain gray, they're never going to look quite the same. There's always slight variations in each batch. So you're always going to have that seam between the concrete that's existing to remain and what is new going in. So our thought was, well, we're putting in this new area. We really want it to be a focal point. Why don't we just add a little bit of color to it, and again, help it pop. And then within that, we can add some banding to further add delineation or accent the area. Next slide. So this one you see I've added in the fencing and the gate. This is standing pretty much from the spa, looking out at the area. And then if you bring the next one. And on this one, we've populated with people, just to give you a sense of how many people you can fit in this space. It really is going to open it up and make it very inviting for your larger events and for dancing. Next. This is a close-up of the proposed fireplace. So again, you're seeing that stone veneer with the kind of reddish colors that are going to be mimicking some of the color that we're using on the pavilion itself and some of the colors that you already have within the community. And then with the seat wall and the ventless fire in the center. Next. And this one is pulling out just a little bit. You can kind of see the gate going over to the pool on the left, and then, of course, the people. And I know when we were looking at the plan view, a lot of that might look a little bit stark for what's going in for the concrete because we are pulling out the landscape. But I do want to point out that you are going to be having furnishings out there. We are going to have the ornamental planter pots. It's not going to be as stark as it may look on that plan view we were looking at. This would be a more realistic view of what that would look like when it's in use. Next. So last but not least, the bocce area. You currently have 1 bocce court and 2 shuffleboards. Bocce is very popular. We were tasked with coming up with a design just to add a second bocce, so we will be retaining the middle shuffleboard court and putting a bocce ball court on the outside. And the existing one is also going to be renovated. Those are going to both be sunken courts, similar to that image that you see on the upper right. At the far end of the existing building, we are going to put in a new pergola, and that's going to match the existing structure. The image that you see on the lower right is your existing structure. So it's going to be made of wood and will be painted to match what you already have. There is currently a planter right about here where you see this darker gray. Because of the change in grade between those areas, that is going to have to come out so that we can fit that bocce court in. That will be able to be used as a spectator area. And we are also talking with MEP. We will make sure that we are adding lights that are going to give you ambient lighting over the bocce courts, including the center of it, so that if you are playing at night or when in low light conditions, you will still be able to see what you are doing there. Next. All right, so next steps on the project. We will be working out some of these details. As I mentioned, there's still some of the things that always when we're doing design and construction documents, as you start to get into it, you might have to give a little bit here and there, such as those, the grade changes over at the far end of the existing structure that will need to be accounted for. But we will be working out those final concept details with the board. And then the next step would be to produce construction documents that are suitable for submitting to the city for permitting. And then once those are processed through the city and we have the approvals, then the HOA will be putting the project out to bid and reviewing bids. And from there, of course, we will go into construction. And that's it. If you want to go to the next slide, we are ready for Q&A.
All right, thanks, Denise. Good job. So we keep talking about it being great for big events. It's going to be great for the smaller events, too, for your small clubs. I know the Racket Club, we've done stuff out there. And even with small groups, like 40 or 50 people crammed under that pavilion, somebody's always behind a post, and it just doesn't work. So I just think this is really exciting. I'm anxious to go. So let's talk about a timeline. So first of all, we have to get the design approved by the board and then authorize them to get out and get the documents done. So the documents are going to take 6 to 8 weeks to get the drawings done, probably. After that, then we go to the city. The city's probably going to take another 6 to 8 weeks to get through that process. Then we get that back and we go out to bid, probably another 6 weeks. So realistically, we wouldn't even be turning dirt probably until really late fall, maybe early winter. So it's not going to be affected. The pool's open, no problem, all summer long, so don't worry about that. But also, once we get the numbers back, we can decide what we can actually afford to do. And that's the important thing. We've only got so much money. And again, we'll do what we can to make this a beautiful project that you're proud of, But again, it may have to be phased in over a couple of years. So I hope you'll understand that and be patient with that. But we want to give you something that you're proud of. So let's open it up to questions, please. Whoever, first one up. Pam, what a surprise.
First off, I want to compliment everybody for the effort that you've put into this. It shows. However, I see some glaring omissions. Number one, I appreciate your intent on wanting to engage the community, but I don't see that happening.
Why? You don't see it happening?
No, I don't.
Well, that
I see
figures.
a lovely hand-picked panel by you. I do not recall any notification to the community of people who might want to volunteer to be on this committee. Notably, I don't see anybody representing the homes that would come right up next to this new pavilion area. The other glaring omission is I don't see any sort of either portable, landscape, or structural sound barriers for the homes that are just a few yards from this new entertainment area. That's been a problem in the past, and so I'm surprised that it is not being addressed right now. And I'm surprised that you don't have a member from these homes on your panel to give them some sort of consideration for what's going to be happening here. Also, it's a little surprising, too, that we have a proposed project going forward with no baseline budget. Now, obviously, the budget's going to be a working budget because you don't have any real hard numbers yet, but you do need a baseline budget to say, this is what we are willing to spend on this project, which could be put down into different sections, depending on the total amount. But this is what we want to see. Now, what can we get for our dollars, and what would we want to add to that? So these are things that I think need to be addressed before you go any further. Thank you. And again, congratulations, because this is beginning to look like a nice project. Thank you.
Jan?
Hello, I'm Jan Foster, and I was the secretary of the Landscape Committee when I met Van Dyke the first time. And we had them, you know, as the landscape architect for much of the colony. They did the whole, as they said, the whole layout for the whole colony. And as we needed part of that done by them, for sure, because we needed so many project permits and things with the city, we had them do those things, and the gates have turned out beautifully, and Florida has turned out beautifully, and the rest of it, some of it we thought, well, let's see if we can do this ourselves, because it's very expensive. They're very expensive to work with compared to, you know, ourselves. And so we had a big learning curve right there. So, but it is possible to take their plans and use the concepts, and they're really very good, very easy to work with. But one of the things I wanted to, struck my mind was the fans and the misters in the patio. Because we have fans and lights that are dimmable in the annex. And unless you have somebody on staff in the meeting, like when we have our landscape committee meetings in the annex, and we can't get the fans to work, Anthony goes and takes care of that, which is really great because there are about 5 different remotes that nobody can seem to get to work right. So my question is that when we have fans out there and misters and everything else, that somehow it's really intuitive that if we don't have a staff member available, that somehow or another we can control those easily and intuitively. That's it.
Yeah, and that came up Friday. If you want to talk about that, Denise.
Sure. So I totally get that, and that was something that we were talking about because these days most of these amenities allow you to choose between having, you know, Bluetooth controlled, you know, remote controlled controls, or having it hardwired, and a lot of them will allow you to do both. where you can have it hardwired, but then you can have the master system would allow Anthony or someone else to be able to override it. And we would probably look at implementing something like that. But we would want to, for any of the lights where, say, you know, someone's going to want to be out there at night after hours, yes, you are going to want to be able to have it where it's an on-off switch that is easily operable. So that will all be taken into consideration.
Thanks. Yeah. And give us your name, please.
Hi, my name is Teresa Ledesma. First of all, thank you for your time and excellent presentation. I do have a question regarding ADA compliant. I was told that when I first moved here as to things couldn't change or be accommodating for disabled people unless a new remodel was happening. So my question is, on the present gates that we have now are difficult for myself to open, let alone somebody in a wheelchair or somebody elderly who does not have the strength to open the gates. So when they go to redesign, are we taking all of that into consideration? And also the spacing between the tables, is there enough room between a wheelchair for somebody to get in between those tables? Thank you.
Absolutely. So on the gates, that's a little bit out of our control because that is a pool code that is required to have self-closing, self-latching gates. So they need to be able to close on their own. And I've had a couple injuries myself where I've been, you know, on a walker or on crutches, and so I can sympathize with the difficulty of that. But we do what we can within code. In terms of space between tables, that layout that you saw was just very rough, but that was allowing, was that 24 or 36? That was 36 inches from back of seat to back of seat, and the seats were spaced so that we were assuming someone was actually occupying it. So that was assuming that you would be able to have 36 inches behind each table to get around.
Anybody else? Questions, comments, please. Gloria.
Good afternoon. Great job, guys. Gloria Broski. My question is, when we're taking out these plants, are we going to be planting them in the community and not just throwing them away? That's for Anthony, I guess.
That's a good suggestion.
I mean, they're still good. Many of them are still good.
Yeah.
Couldn't we fill in places where we need plants?
Yeah, and I think the palm trees, we've talked about taking those out and selling those.
Well, that would be good. And also, are you going to have plug-ins for people that want to charge their devices?
We will be having convenience outlets throughout the area that's being renovated, so we will definitely be taking that into consideration and working that in.
Okay,
And
thank you.
Gloria, Jake has a layout here, so he's putting his tech mind into the dirt and
I
figuring
see
out
him
what-
over there drawing, yes.
Yeah. Anybody else? Oh, here he comes. I thought you were going to come up and beat us with that thing.
Beat myself. I just have a question. I don't, Jim will know, was this the project that we tried to get voted into just to get a cost and it was turned down? Is this the same project?
Similar but different.
Yeah, but I know it's different. But
Yeah.
That's the project.
Yeah, that's the one that died some time ago.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what year it was.
Yeah, it's been a long time ago. So it's been on the books for a while. So it's been resurrected, modified, so that it's not so enclosed, and hopefully it won't be so expensive either.
That's important.
It is.
Thank you.
Who else? Come on, jump up here.
My name's Chris Morphus. I sit on the LAC. I did have, first of all, beautiful plan. I do have some background in landscape design and so on myself, so I just appreciate it.
Does Jan know that?
Yes, she does.
Okay.
My question is, I'm kind of all about the food, obviously. Looking at the food serving area, and there's no cover over it. For afternoon events, if you're bringing salads and so out in the middle of summer, it might be nice to have some sort of cover over that area just to help keep it cool. And from a safety standpoint, it might be a better thought to have the barbecues against the building so that when people are walking through, they're not potentially hitting the backsides of the barbecues.
Yeah, unfortunately,
themselves.
they have to be 20 feet from the wall of the annex by code.
Okay.
That answered that, yeah.
That does.
And we talked about shade, about maybe putting pop-ups, again, trying to keep some costs down, because those sales would get very expensive.
A retractable awning might be the solution.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just throwing
But
it
again,
out
that-
there as down.
And you're right, I mean, but that's something, if we see that that's an issue later, we could address that. But again, it's not replacing something, so it goes on the capital side.
I
We just
understand.
have to be real cognizant of the money we're spending.
And then the last question was, and I've missed a couple of the conversations on it, the actual seating under that pavilion. How many did we say?
I think there was 16.
16 60-inch round tables.
So that's 10 per table, 160?
8.
Okay.
8 times 16, so 108.
Okay. And then
128.
the dark lines I'm seeing between the, quote, dance floor area and the pavilion and the kitchen, is that an architectural element in the concrete, or are those actual fencings?
That's just ornamental banding, so within the concrete.
So conceivably, tables could be set around it, just not under the awning?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because some people may not want to be under the pavilion.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, oh, thanks for your question. Tom, did you have something?
Thomas McClure, beautiful job. The year-round swimmers will want to know if the pool will have to be shut down much during construction.
No.
Thank you. I'm off to the pool.
Anybody else? Please. Come on up here.
Jody Harris. On the fireplace, can that ventless fireplace box be two-sided? Or is it only allowed to be one-sided to be ventless?
We talked about that. The problem with having it be two-sided is that you have that planter area there, and because of that code requiring a 20-foot offset or some sort of barrier between plantings, and that we are concerned that that would require us to remove all of the plants in that area.
Yvonne Peltz, I'm just kind of tacking on the fireplace issue. That's just basically an aesthetic thing because it doesn't really provide a lot of warmth or heat or anything. Probably a cost that maybe isn't necessary, could be better utilized covering the food or something. Just my thoughts.
And we thought about that, but what we wanted, what we hoped for was when people come into the colony to look for the first time and they come into the atrium, when they look out that they see the fireplace, it's an inviting place, and just a place where people can hang out, have a glass of wine at night, and ambiance. Again, it's not necessary. It's not there now. If it wasn't ever there, would it be missed? No. Would it be nice to have? Yeah. So if we can afford it, it's one of those things we'd like to have.
If I can add on to that, Pat. So on the overall layout, when you look at it, everything is kind of centered over on the pavilion and the barbecues, and the other area just kind of felt like more of a pass-through area. By adding that, you're adding a second focal point that's kind of anchoring the opposite end of this area. And in our experience, when you have something like that, it's going to attract people and they're going to want to sit there. And there will be some warmth from the fireplace. If you're sitting at that seat wall directly in front of it, you're going to get some warmth from it. It's not going to go very far, but if you're adjacent. But again, in our experience, that tends to bring people to an area. And, you, like we showed in the rendering, you can create seating around there. And so again, it's going to make it feel like one cohesive area instead of feeling like you just walk out of the atrium and then you're just kind of passing through that particular space. So that was the thinking behind it.
One more quick question, Teresa again. Were solar panels considered so that it self-powers itself with the energy that we create?
Solar panels are a possibility. That structure can handle solar panels, so that's something that we will be looking into.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Gloria.
Yes, I can. How are we getting into the wall seating area around the fireplace? Is there a little opening at the ends, or are we expected to climb over that wall to sit and face the fireplace? Because that's an accident waiting for us to...
Now, if we can, maybe you can bring up the image, either the overall or the one just looking at the fireplace, if you can bring up that. Okay, so this is pretty much if you were to walk outside of the atrium looking at the spa. The spa's directly behind it. So that's a curved seat wall directly in front of it. So you would just sit with your back to the fireplace for that. And so let me kind of point. So this is your existing planter and the existing wall. So we're just kind of continuing the wall around and bumping it out with a precast concrete top that you can sit on for this section, so that for events and such, you can opt to sit on it if you want, but your back would be to the fireplace, so you wouldn't be sitting facing it.
Well, how could I sit and face it?
There's going to be furniture out there.
Right. Not directly in front of it.
Okay. Okay.
Gloria, we can talk about that afterwards. Come on up, Pam. Oh, all right, please.
I'll go after. No, my only concern would be how much access would the residents have of all this stuff? Would you be able to come out and turn this on or that on or whatever? Or do you have to get maintenance people every time you want to do something out there?
Well, no. I mean, short answer is no. Everybody's got access to it 24 hours a day. If you're going to do an event out there, like if you were going to do an event in here, let Kara know. She'll get the guys to set it up however you want to set
Just
up.
as far as lights or turning the jacuzzi on and off, everything is just going to be open?
Yep, George and the staff can take care of you.
Okay.
Pam.
Okay, again, one of the issues that's going to be coming up quite a bit is going to be the sound issues. I mean, I invite everybody here on their way out to go out there and see how close these neighbors' houses are to this entertainment area. Nobody's mentioning anything about this. Now, from what I see of your plans, where you have the stage and the entertainment, it's facing outwards, which is pretty much directly in the direction of those homes. And you don't have anybody here to represent those people saying, hey, at 10 o'clock, my house is vibrating.
That's why we're having a town hall today, Pam.
Sorry?
That's why we're having a town hall meeting today. That
Right.
Everybody was notified that they
Right.
could come here.
Right.
Okay.
So I, unlike you addressing other people's concerns, I don't see you addressing that concern now.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Goodness. Anybody else? Please. Okay, we're going to hang out here. Denise and Mauro, you got a few minutes to hang out if people have some questions. Anybody up here on our subcommittee? Closing comments? Nope. So thank you all for coming, and we'll keep you apprised.